Okay, could I please, Clerk Segrist, call the roll?
Trustee Anthony.
Present.
Trustee Foster.
Good evening.
Trustee Graham Hudek. The record reflect Clerk Segrist is in attendance. Treasurer Slavens.
Good evening.
Trustee Snyderman.
Hello, everyone.
Supervisor Williams.
Hello.
All here.
We have two items on the agenda this evening. Could I call for a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
In favor of the motion as presented, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. First item is consideration of resolution approving ballot language for road improvement millage. As the public may or may not be aware, for the past 7-8 months, we had a roads task force group that met, which was a cross-section of the community, and did a deep dive based on the limited information that they could have available to them to come up with potential solutions, ideas, and things that the Canton Board of Trustees may incorporate to try to improve our roads in our community. So that group, I think, met 17, 18 times over a 7-month period, made the presentation to the board, what turned into, I think, a 4-hour board meeting, and then we had a follow-up special meeting with just the board to further discuss the presentation by the Roads Task Force. From there, we all agreed that we were not really aligned or consensed. Some of the trustees had additional questions for staff, which I think have all now been answered. The purpose of this evening is to, I think we should probably open up with public comment first, and then from there, we'll see if we can reach a consensus and move forward. Is there any public comment? Is there any, Mark, would you?
Yeah, just a question about procedurally.
Oh,
Okay, please, could you, yeah.
approach the podium. Just people at home will
Yep,
be able
I
to hear.
appreciate that. Just a question procedurally, since the public doesn't know what the consensus will be, I'd like to reserve my comments till I hear what the trustees are going to do and propose. The way I understand from the agenda is that there's going to be some discussion tonight about a potential millage increase. That number is yet to be determined. The term is yet to be determined, so I don't have any comments, but I'd like to have the opportunity to comment on it after the motion is taken.
I think that's reasonable. Yeah, because I too don't know what the consensus is going to be yet. Next, ma'am, would you like to make any comment? Public comment? No? Mr. Andro? Do? Seeing no public comment, let's go ahead and discuss. Where do we start? Where should we start? Anybody want to take a lead? Share some ideas, thoughts? Stephen?
Okay. Well, I think the last proposal on the table was 1.45 mils. I don't remember I think it was 10-year term of millage. If we're going to be at that level, I would prefer to see it at 20 years. As we've seen with millages for golf courses and buildings and things like that, going through this process is time-consuming, not just for us, but just for the community itself. And if we're going to do something, let's do it now and get it done and have this in place for a good number of years. So I personally would like to see us do 20 years as the time frame. In all that I've heard and some of the questions that I got answered, one of which was whether we could do a township-wide SAD, which was originally proposed by the commission, but later administration reviewed it and decided it is not something that's feasible for us to do as a community in terms of legality and also expense. So I'm understanding that. I think personally, I want to see all three levels: local roads, state, primary county roads, local county roads, which I guess are subdivision roads, primary county roads, which are the surface roads owned by the county, and state roads, which is up on the board there. I think it's important that the community is addressing all of these things. I'm comfortable going higher in terms of the millage, but we are a board that I believe it's important that we come to a consensus. We're never going to have a perfect solution or proposal that each and every one of us gets exactly the way we think it is, let alone the community is going to get exactly what they think, all 90,000 plus residents. So I think it's something that we get to, hopefully, that we all can feel comfortable with. If I was doing this, I probably would say closer to 2 mills. I would like to see this, if possible, maybe add 10% to what we're doing in this proposal, which would get us closer to maybe 1.6. I could feel comfortable with that, but I'm waiting to hear what other people are thinking. Other than that, questions I had were about sidewalks and paths being included, and there will be a level of that that's included in this, especially where we're fixing the roads, the associated paths and sidewalks with the roads that we're fixing. And I don't think there was any other thing that was left unanswered for me, so I appreciate that.
Thank you. And I have to agree with Stephen, because when I first saw the 1.45, I was worried about that. So I think we've come to a happy medium, because I certainly wouldn't want to go more than 1.45. I'm stretching it to do that. But looking at the data, and I appreciate all that Tim and Wendy and the task force did do, we do need to make up revenue, and so I think 1.45 over 20 years is a fair thing to ask the voters. We have waited so long for the state and the county, and nothing's happening, so I think that we, as Canton residents, have to step up to the plate, and we have to invest in our roads. So I agree, in a 1.45, I don't think I could go any higher than that. I'd like to, but I just want to make sure that our residents can afford, and we can pass this. So I appreciate what you have said, Stephen.
Thanks, Dan.
Go ahead, Summer.
I have to say I agree with the 20-year length of time. I think that is probably provides us with an opportunity to get a lot more work done on our roads, and provides a little bit more investment into this roads program. I am not 100% sure on what the right millage number is. I think 1.45 sounds to me like something that wouldn't be a stretch for the community to afford, and it would allow us to do a lot of good work here, particularly on our local primary, and even begin to tackle the monstrosity, which is Ford Road, which I think is important, and that I've heard quite a bit about from residents. So I am comfortable with 1.45, and I'm comfortable with the ratios that Tim has laid out in the proposal.
I'm going to go ahead and jump in, and then we'll just keep going down the line, if you don't mind. Let's see, got a lot of things running through my brain right now. Number one, we asked the task force to identify what it would take to solve Canton's roads problems. And there were a lot of estimates that were pulled together. I think $230 million at one point was the number, and it was a concept of 6 mills in a 10-year period. That way you're getting work done fast enough that you don't have continued deterioration. A lot of hard work and effort went into framing or trying to size the total problem that we have in our community, which everybody understands, which is lousy roads, substandard roads. I do see some light at the end of the tunnel in terms of the residents in Michigan did approve an increase in the gas tax. There is going to be additional dollars flowing in the future years. How many years out, I don't know. I can't guesstimate. Also, I know that in 2020, when our census increases, Wayne County will be getting more population census increases. Wayne County is going to be getting more money for roads. So my approach to this entire conversation has been, how can we get something done as opposed to nothing, which is where we're at today, continue to hold our state legislators' feet to the fire in terms of adequately funding Act 51 and taking a look at Act 51 distributions. I do believe that higher levels of funding should come to the more densely populated areas of the state as opposed to up north. I think lane miles in Wayne County are a heck of a lot more expensive than up in Escanaba, and I don't think that we're fairly being treated right now in terms of that. So keep pressure on those who are responsible for our roads, but at the same time, raise enough cash, significant enough cash to do value add throughout the community in the three major areas. Ford Road, to me, is we are still the top 1 to 3 accident site in the state of Michigan. That's nothing I'm proud of, and we know that the solution is eliminating left-hand turns, which we're working with MDOT short-term to do something in test areas. Also, the bigger picture is a boulevard there. So I do want to move forward in terms of getting us 30% design level, so MDOT can see us as being closer to shovel-ready. So maybe that'll raise up the priority with the state there. The local roads, if we stay around the 35% level, there's enough money there that, what were we at, $1,750,000 over 2 years, basically $3.5 million, Tim?
It was, the County Roads Assistance Program from a couple of years ago was 1.5 million in each year, so 3 million.
Million total.
Plus a 20% match from the HOAs, so it was about 3.75 million total.
Total about 3.75 million. That, we did improve a lot of streets in 20 different neighborhoods. We got a whole lot of neighborhoods that didn't even know about the process, even though we tried to communicate it to everybody. You also have several neighborhoods that aren't organized to get the 20% match raise, but there's a lot of work still to be done there. And primary roads, we all drive them every day, we know what they look like. My conference last week, MTA, I attended classes specifically on ballot initiatives. I attended another class specifically on road funding. Didn't really learn anything new, but reemphasize, I think, what we've been learning the last couple of months as a group. I want to do something. My fear is the higher the value, the lower probability of it passing. The longer the term, the lower the probability of it passing. I see a 10-year period as being enough years to have an impact, use these dollars to incentivize Wayne County to do more in Canton Township. The biggest fear we have, and we've discussed it with, I see Commissioner Joe Barone's in the room, Mike and myself and Joe and Tim have got a meeting scheduled with Wayne County Thursday, where our goal is to try to get a hard commitment that if we, on the long shot that this thing passes and we raise these funds, that they're not going to turn around and reduce the investment they're already making in our community. That's the number one fear I have. That's the number one fear I have. And getting Wayne County to make that commitment, I have no idea where that's going to end up. And, you know, Clerk Segrist and I have talked about it in detail. So we're putting together a plan for that meeting. I want to do something as opposed to doing nothing. And this is not going to solve the world's problems. What will happen is you'll see impacts, if this is successful, of these dollars being invested in our community. The upside of it, unlike Act 51 dollars, where you get, you know, I don't know how many billions of a penny coming back to Canton Township, at least 100 cents in the dollar will, if any of these funds will stay in the community, and it'll be focused on roads. So those are my high-level thoughts. Michael or John?
Or we'll just keep going, I guess, down the line. If I learned anything from the exercise of watching the Roads Task Force over the last year pursue the Herculean task of figuring out what the entire roads problem in, you know, I guess problem is the word you would use, in Canton Township is, it is that it's daunting. It's a sizable amount. When you look at local roads, you look at the primary roads, when you talk about the fact that for the last 9 years, I've watched the township go to the federal government with our hat in our hand, asking for the Tiger grants over and over and over again, and getting denied over and over and over again, yet still hearing the complaints about Ford Road, the complaints about neighborhood roads, the complaints about potholes on primary roads. I've seen two forms of paralysis. The first form being don't do anything. And I think most people are finding that that is not a reasonable position. The other solution is fix everything and fix it all at once. And I worry. I worry about us letting the perfect be the enemy of the good. So when I look at the program that is laid out on that TV screen right there, and I see, what can we do internally with a $5.5 million annual roads program? I've heard, I like seeing the state road component because I like the idea of working to get Ford Road shovel ready so that we don't have to show up with our hat in our hand and ask for them to do the engineering and then do the land acquisition and then do all the design. And then, I like the idea of being able to approach the state of Michigan and being able to approach the federal government with a shovel-ready project. I like the idea of being able to see some movement on what has been one of the most dangerous crash intersections in Wayne County for the last couple of decades. I think I would like to see, and I know a number of people have talked offline after with us, some roads task force members have talked a little bit periodically, and I agree that the primary roads are probably a larger area that I think, when I hear people complain, predominantly outside of the HOA boards, it's predominantly about potholes. It's about areas in the community where you do see the roads that have a PACER rating very low in the red, the critical, the poor PACER rating. And so I think I would be more comfortable with seeing that number at like a 55%, and then maybe dropping the local roads program to the 35%, which would actually get it kind of in line with what the county roads program had, the county road assistance program had in previous years, which was the 1.5 million. So if you were to drop it from maybe a 30, 55, 15. Now I also know this is an Excel page, and this is not the master plan or the program that we would be coming up with, but that we would be managing the roads with. But as a broad outline, I'd be more comfortable with that because also that's kind of the bulk of the cost is in the primary road system as well. But yeah, I think that's where I'm at on this. I know I've heard the stories year after year after year of people who spend money on unnecessary auto repair as a direct result of the roads. I was just asking the supervisor about the Cranes article that went through and compared what we pay in Michigan per capita for road improvements and what our surrounding states pay per capita on road improvements. And it's woefully inadequate. We have not been maintaining our assets. And I know what happens when I don't change the oil in my car. After a certain amount of miles, I begin to have to make some further repairs, some more costly repairs. So we've got deteriorating roads that I feel the federal government has left us with, that the state government, through Act 51, an inadequate funding model, has left us with a problem, and the county is unable to, and in some cases perhaps unwilling to, maintain that asset as well. So that's a perfect storm right there. I think we can't do it all on our own, which is why I would never support doing a 6 mil tax increase over 10 years. That would be insane, I feel. I don't know how a human being could pay that much. I don't think the burden should fall on taxpayers, on property taxpayers, to pick up the tab for the federal government, the state government, and the county. I think that 1.45 mils is reasonable. For me, that would amount to $181 a year, $4 a week. According to that Cranes article, I am currently spending $865 a year on repair to my car as a direct result of the roads. The average motorist spending $865 a year on road-related repair. That's $17 a week. I would gladly reduce that number. I mean, I'd rather pay Canton Township than Bell Tire, I'll be quite honest. So when I think about this, I think it's a reasonable amount. I think Livonia has had a program for 17 years. They have had a program that is a little bit smaller than this when it comes to the millage rate. But over the 17 years, they've been able to move the needle. They've been able to move it, but it's also been slow progress, which is why I would be in favor of having a reconstruction and improvement, a repair, and a maintenance program that would extend for 20 years, which would allow us to have some, show all of the actors that we have some skin in the game and get everybody to come in and help, because we can't do it on our own. But somebody's got to move. We can't sit with the status quo as it is right now. Somebody's got to move, so I'm in favor of that.
One little note is the average taxable value of a home in Canton Township is just a fraction above $100,000. So the average homeowner in Canton Township would be $145 a year. I think you were using your personal residence maybe as a reference.
I was, yeah. I'm just the one step above that. So I was using $181 a year as opposed to $145 a year. I think it's $3, about $3 a year for the or a week for the average homeowner.
$12 a month for the average.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
my grandson said the other day when I said, "You can't have any more candy," "Don't like, Papa, don't like." Raising taxes is something I don't like. Only once before, I've been on the board 10 years, I think it's only once before we were faced with a tax increase, and it was because when things were the downturn and public safety was an issue, and we had to swap money from millages from the general fund to the public police and fire fund, and that I could live with that. This is a tough one. This is a tough one, and I've wrestled with it, and I don't care if it's 1.45 or 1.0 or 20.45. It's a tough pill to swallow. The problem is, what the hell are we going to do with the roads in Canton? Are we going to do nothing? Nothing's been done for, I've lived here since 1973, nothing's been done since then. We either got to take ownership of the roads, which I think we have to, and bite the bullet and do something. To do nothing is not an option. Don't like it, don't want it, there's no way around it. We put in for 8 Tiger grants for Ford Road, and we got nothing. Macomb County got to pave a dirt road to a dump, and we got nothing for Ford Road. The State Act 51, I wish somebody could explain that cluster to me, why you have to be a city in order to get money for your road. Is our road different than Livonia or Westland roads? It's the same concrete, same roads, That doesn't make any sense, Act 51. And of course, Wayne County, Supervisor Williams has done a yeoman job in forging a relationship with Warren Evans, and hopefully that'll bear fruit down the road, but I'm not comfortable that Wayne County has the money, if they wanted to give us more money for roads. We did partner with Wayne County a few years ago. I remember when I was not on the board, and the board formed a Intersex Action Committee, and we were able to partner with Wayne County and fix about 53 intersections in Canton Township, and that worked out pretty well. So I'm hopeful that maybe buy Warren an extra donut or something to get him to come across with some money. The thing I do like about the proposal is the fact that Canton Township will take ownership of the roads. Any millage increase that we have that would be voted on by the township residents would stay in Canton Township. It wouldn't go over to Wayne County or to the federal government or to the state government. And I also like the idea that there's going to be some allocation for subdivision roads. I think that's the priority in my mind, is to get those subdivision roads up to speed. Sunflower, my son lives in Sunflower. I hate to go over to his house. It's a gravel road. There's got to be some money spent on those roads. Make a long story short, I would be in favor of the 1.45 for 20 years.
If I may, Anne Marie, before, yeah, there was the Roads Task Force, some of the members I had spoken to. Guys, we're not taking ownership of any roads here. All we're doing is stepping up, taking a little responsibility for these roads, because it's a very key technical differential between taking some responsibility, trying to make something happen, and taking some control of our situation, as opposed to being at the mercy of Wayne County, which is the current situation. So that's point one. Point two is,
What you said, and also John said about 100% of the money staying
Will stay
in
in-
our community versus some other ballot initiatives where that's not always the case.
some of the road task force members who did reach out to me, one of the concerns was, don't jump. We don't know exactly where these dollars are going to go today. There's more information, such as the PASER studies that have to be done in the local neighborhoods to prioritize, what's going to happen first, second, third. So rather than being a lottery situation, it's going to be highest priority, not only traffic counts, but PASER studies.
Pat, if I could just add to that, the intent here is two things. One, to, if this millage does pass, is to, spread this money around so that we're looking at needs across the entire community, not just in a few select areas. So I think that will be important to voters when they give consideration to any millage. So PASER factors into that analysis, but then I think there's kind of a practical judgment that needs to be made from an administrative and engineering standpoint of, where to kind of do things. And then the second thing is the bullet point that's below or just above the word ownership on the screen. And, our staff would propose to have as much flexibility as possible, should this pass and should this move forward, so that as, conditions warrant, that, if more money is needed in a particular year on the primary road system, that, we balance out those priorities year to year, but the percentages here are really just kind of general goals that we're thinking would make up a reasonable program.
And one more word on the ownership thing, because I did discuss this with a couple of the Roads Task Force members individually, and that is from MTA last week, I have a hard commitment from them to come in to do a study session in conjunction with the Michigan Municipal League. MTA is the Michigan Townships Association for the state, and then the MML is the Michigan Municipal League, is the association for all the cities. And I've asked them to come in and make a presentation, study session for the board members, so we can get better educated on the pros and cons, risks and rewards of cityhood versus the township. And what I'm learning is it's not just as simple as the roads. There's a lot of other subsurface things that will impact us if we become. So whether or not it's a good idea or bad idea, I don't think anybody here is saying it is or is not. We're just saying we need to learn a lot more before we jump.
Thanks. Anything else?
No, well, I know where we're going. Yeah.
No, I really want to say thank you to the task force and the staff that worked with everyone, and Summer, who led the effort. Jim Costiva also,
Jim
who's out there.
Costiva.
Thank you. Got Jim too. And I'm really proud of us, because rather than only questioning the cost of doing this, we're also questioning the cost of what if we don't do this, and that's really important. We've lived with the roads that we have, even driving to different counties. I drove to Oakland County yesterday to see my family, and there's a difference in roads and in between the two counties. It's unfortunate that, the county's in the financial position it's in. It's unfortunate the state's in the financial position it's in. And as Michael said, Livonia has this program like this. Many cities last August across the state put this on the ballot, and most of them passed, because a lot of cities and towns are realizing they have to take it into their own hands like we are. So I'm really proud that we are. I'm happy we're proactive, and I also think that moving forward, working with the homeowners associations, to come up with solutions. Like John said, I do like the part in there where there's a subdivision option. I think that's important, so they understand that they're part of the solution. Also looking for synergies. I know we're looking at your money, we're looking at the gas tax, but hopefully coming soon, we're going to see some technology funds coming. Maybe we can put some of that money to use too, to help with some of the road payment. I agree. I do like, we had a lot of papers to look for, a lot of spreadsheets to look through. I like what we talked about last week, the 145. I also like that we're taking it to the voters. We're not just putting it on them and saying, live with it, that we're saying, hey, we studied it, this is what it takes, and what do you think? We're going to do a lot of talking from here until, the date that it does happen. But I do like the 145, 20 years is good, like you said. Otherwise, in 10 years, we're kind of struggling where we are again and saying, how far do we get? Do we need more? And everything that the board said, I like. I'm proud of us. I'm proud of everybody out there who's been a part of this and everybody who wants to learn about this and everybody who's voiced their concerns. We've had a lot of people talking, a lot of people concerned, and the PACER studies that Sunflower did are excellent. I think that's a great study. And I went to my homeowners association annual meeting last week and I told them about it, even talking about maybe thinking about putting some money aside for the roads like Sunflower has. I think that's important, and educating some of our homeowners associations like that. So I'm really for this. I think that it's important that we try to do something about this. And also per process, I know it's not a study session, but if we do back and forth, are we going to be allowed to?
No, there's not going to be a back and forth. I
Okay.
think what I'm going to do is, because all the board has pretty much spoken, I think we're telegraphing, directionally what's going to happen here tonight. So at this point, I am going to request public comment. And then once we get through public comment, I'm going to call for somebody to make a motion. I don't know what that final motion is going to be, but I'm sensing what it's going to be, and we'll have a vote. So that being said,
According to my notes, there are two anomalies right now. One was Trustee Snyderman said he wanted to go above 1.45, and then you had said 10 years. So,
but it sounds like
Consensus?
we have an overwhelming majority that says 1.45, 20 years. That's what I heard. I think-
didn't hear a lot of support for what I had said, so I'm not going to,
And I think once we have a motion, then we can have further discussion if there needs to be further discussion about the motion on the table.
sorry.
That being said, now would be the time for public comment. Please, Mark. And I'd request name, address, and standard 3 minutes if we could, Mark.
Yep, I put it in the box here.
Got
so-
hours and hours dedicated to this, so
No, that-
wrap that up in 3 minutes.
That's
Good luck.
fine, and I actually, pretty unusual for me, I brought some very brief prepared notes, because what I heard there tonight, we could talk for hours on the misinformation and misunderstanding of everyone's view on what it takes to fix the road situation, so I'll stick to my notes. I'm here tonight as a member of the Roads Task Force that you commissioned to provide the board with solutions to Canton's poor roads conditions. I'd first like to thank my fellow task force members for their hard work and dedication to finding a data-driven solution to this issue. With that said, I'm confused and disappointed by the actions I have taken this evening, but you haven't taken them yet, so I'm going to assume that the telegraph is received, that the actions you're about to take this evening, by the board to place a question in front of the voters that will do nothing to solve the road condition problem in Canton. It seems that you have a fundamental misunderstanding of life cycle management of assets, and in particular, life cycle management of roads. Instead, it will result in millions, now seemingly over $100 million in taxpayer funds being spent on Band-Aids that will leave our roads even worse at the end of this tax increase and cost us millions of dollars in the process. My rationale is as follows. Number one, the annual amount being proposed is far less than required to solve the road issues in Canton, and frankly, not data-driven from anything that I can see. We're talking 1.45, 1.4, 1.6, 1 point whatever. There's no data behind this. The net result of this increase will simply be to waste taxpayers' money on a cold patch-style Band-Aid that will not solve the problem, resulting in millions of taxpayer dollars being spent with no sustainable road improvement. And if you want to know what that's going to look like, I would challenge you to drive on Canton Center, between Ford Road and Warren. Last year at this time, the road was in horrible condition. We spent millions of dollars over the summer and into the fall to do a patchwork quilt on that road, and today, it's just as bad. We have a large number of potholes filled with cold patch to protect your tires, to Clerk Segrist's comment about tires, to protect your car from rebar that's sticking through areas that were not fixed. So you'll spend $110 million on roads, and we'll get that situation. Now we're going to get to fix Canton Center again. The second piece, and several people have alluded to it, your proposal does not address accountability. The proposed millage will not result in the accountability for the roads being in the hands of Canton residents, contrary to some of the comments, and thank you to Supervisor Williams for the correction. This increased tax will allow Wayne County to continue to provide the same inferior service that Canton has been receiving on its roads, the $3.5 million that's allegedly promised there. In addition, this may cause Wayne County to further divert our gas tax monies to other areas in Wayne County, making Canton an even larger donor to the rest of Wayne County. I look forward to personally having a public debate with each of you to allow our community to evaluate your political do-something approach against the data-driven sustainable solution outlined by the Roads Task Force. Thank you again for allowing me to participate in the development of a data-driven solution to the roads issue in Canton, and I look forward to the public debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Mike, please go ahead.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I certainly agree with the comments of Mr. Horvath. I want to challenge you to maybe think about this a little bit differently. I've seen over the years, certainly in many different kinds of public bodies, this propensity to maybe not prioritize the budget and let folks decide what's more important. And I would ask kind of rhetorically, is fixing the roads more important than police and fire? Probably not. Is fixing the roads more important than the $3 million that we spend on leisure services, on a golf course, on a swimming pool? And I think rather than jump to the conclusion that we're going to just raise taxes, I'd like to challenge you to ask the electorate, ask the folks in town, whether fixing the roads are more important than some of the other budget line items that we have. What I've seen in the past, and with all due respect to the folks that have been on the board a long time, it's very easy to go to folks and say, we need to raise money for police and fire, but we didn't go back and reprioritize our budget. And that's my challenge. And as we have this public conversation, this dialogue about whether to raise taxes, that's where I'm going to be coming from. We could get $3 million a year right now. And I think that's what we should do. And then let's go back and ask folks if we want money for a pool or a golf course. What's more important?
Very much. Darian? Kind of moving. And the idea here is we'll move front to back, but Mr. Letty, if you would like, can come up after Darian. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll just say that it looks like you're telegraphing which way we're going to go, and that's fine. I think I'd heard something about being on the ballot in August. I would encourage you, maybe think about giving people a little more time to digest and to learn about what we're intending to do. So maybe it goes on the ballot in the next cycle or in the fall or whatever. Especially, we're looking at, like Mark said, $100 million over 20 years tax on folks. So you may want to make sure that we have enough time for enough of our township to really learn and gather an understanding. And I'm not really sure if we can learn this, get the word out, and people have a great understanding with the amount of time going on the ballot this quickly. So it's just my thoughts.
Kim? Yeah, we've kind of been blowing past that. Name, addresses, if you would. It's not necessary, but we'd appreciate it for the record.
Jim Letty, 6757 Brookshire, Pickwick Village, HOA president for 11 years, only because nobody else will take the job. I might have to move, I don't know. Excellent comments. I really like the comments about the budget, the current budget, because we already pay taxes. We already have a general fund. And maybe we should have a better visibility or explanation on it before we decide to raise taxes. I think that's a great point you made. The thing about Act 51 money and why the township doesn't get very much of it, do we know the answer to that? What's the answer?
Okay, well, the.
Because we need to know
yeah,
the
no,
answer to that before we ask people for more money, right? Can't we get more money from them?
My bad, I shouldn't be responding right now. Keep going, Jim.
Well, do we know the answer to that question? Why doesn't the township get more of the money from Wayne County? Why doesn't it get more Act 51 money?
All very complicated questions. And the answers are not short answers. That's what I'll say.
Okay. Okay, well, I think the people that are going to vote on this should have an understanding of why that is before we vote.
Good. Sir?
Good evening. Gary Otiski, 47596 10 Point Drive, Canton, Michigan, 48187. You know, everyone wants nice roads. And I also like to have a Rolls Royce in my driveway, a 2018. But everyone don't want tax increase, and I especially don't. Because millage, there's a lot of things can be on this millage this fall, next fall. Like that transportation millage that was on the ballot last fall. The school passed, and that one fell, but just think how many dollars that would have added also onto our taxes. You know, we have gas tax and gas tax and gas tax. Now we got registration fees. Where's that money at? Who's accountable for it? Show me the budget on that money. Where's it going from? Just like the lottery for the schools, they took the funds, the state, and kept the lottery money. So it's no win-win situation. The upcoming new governor has a plan, a way and a means. Now you're going to say, who's that? Well, I don't know. Well, I'll tell you who I am for, and she's an excellent lady, very well educated, and that's Gretchen Whitmer. We need a plan. We don't need blindness. We need a direction with accountability and responsibility. Look at all the existing cities around here, especially in Wayne County. All their roads are bad. And look at their cities, they're getting funds, and their roads are bad as Canton's. And I'll say amen on that. You can take that to the choir. And what guarantees we have after we pay all these tax dollars? You know, we ain't here to redo the roads, design them where they're passable, secured, and widening. Most of the roads here are not wide enough, not too many, no lanes. And who I blame for that is the Canton boards, past boards, of bringing all these developments in here, the commercial businesses, and forgetting about the roads. So we're putting an extreme amount of traffic on our horse and buggy roads. Almost done. I hope I'm under 3 minutes. I'm totally against taxing subdivisions to pay for the bad apple. I feel subdivisions to be taking care of themselves. I don't want to be taxed where my roads are in good shape and I got to pay for somebody that hasn't had the roads repaired in 20 years. That's not my responsibility. Also, like I said, I'm against raising taxes when there are so many ways, so many different ways we can solve this problem. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Miller.
Potholes, big subject. I asked Mrs. Slavens this week to, some time ago, I'm underneath the impression, from Palmer Road to Cherry Hill, that was paved by taxpayer money of Canton the second time. The county didn't step forward and pave that. The first time it was paved, that section, they floated Canton bonds. I asked if it was Canton or Wayne County. I'm getting tired of stepping to the base for Wayne County. The same way going south on Sheldon Road to Michigan Avenue, that's floated bonds, Canton. Like to know if Canton floated the bonds. Where's the record on that? Palmer Road, the same way, back in the 80s. That was paid by Canton float bonds. Mr. Foss should know about that, I'm sure. Secondly, I've been told here at meetings, evidently this township has contracted with the county to salt some roads out here for 15 or 19 years straight because the county was hard pressed. The first thing that pops into my mind, guess what? The county's not broke for 15 years straight, or 19. What happened to that money? Why isn't there some, at least these guys in office now, these commissioners, do their job? I've been over to the county commissioner who represents this area. He tells me the head commissioner of Wayne County, whoever it may be, they vote the money in, and the head commissioner sees where he wants to put it. That's it, final, done deal. Now, let's go to senior citizens. When there's a power shortage here, I'd like to know why, for the love of God, that you can't have some older citizens, 70 or 80 years old, stay, if they don't have anywhere to stay that night, for a day or two, to stay at the summit over there and sleep in the chair, where the heat's off, or if it's during the summer, there's a storm. That, at 10 o'clock, you're on your own. Sleep underneath the bridge over there at Ford Road and 275. Now, that's how you treat, you guys talk a lot about helping senior citizens, but when it comes to it, you don't step to the base. I've experienced that here just recently. You talk a lot. Just like this gentleman said here with taxes. We have a gas tax, and I've mentioned it here in this. Your tags have went up on your cars. Like I said, wherever you're going around this state here and there, not through the woods on the walking paths, but alongside the road, the bike path, that 2 or 3 foot, those guys don't pay anything for that with those $1,000 bikes they have. There's not a $25 license plate for them. Everybody has a weed whacker. I've talked to my state rep about this. You go over there and get a gallon of gas, 8 million, 10 million, 20 million, that gallon of gas for summer snow blowers. That snow blower is not making a pothole over here on Ford Road. That, you're paying the same as that gallon of gas is pumped into your car. Where does that money go? When I talk to these state reps, well, that's forward, it's unfeasible. Everything you talk to them is unfeasible. I'd like to know why we should pay for Wayne County, some of these main roads like Sheldon, Palmer, when these contractors are hauling gravel trains down it. That little road over there, Sheldon Road, probably 6 inches thick, and there's gravel trains hauling down it. Now, there's a weight limit here, but it's never enforced anymore in Wayne County because they don't have but maybe one weighmaster, and Canton used to have one, and he's not here anymore. So why should we foot the bill for this? And you go over to Livonia, everybody brags about Livonia. Go on the service drive. You'd be better off on a gravel road. That's about all I have to say tonight.
Next speaker. Next interested person, please. Ladies, would you like to speak? No? Mr. Costeva? No? Commissioner Barone? Check. Ma'am? Mr. Spencer? Would you like to speak? Anybody else in the back row, would you like to speak? Now would be the time, please, sir. Mike, did I skip past you? Would you like to speak, sir? Okay, very good.
My name is Charles Miller, and I live at 47074 Glastonbury in Canton. And I've been listening to you guys, and I'm wondering where you got this $100,000 house in Canton, because there is no $100,000 house that's not a piece of shit. I know because I watch for them, because I like rebuilding houses. So your average sale is probably 200,000, you know, and not 100,000. Yes, that's what you get the tax for, but you have to think about the people coming in too. They're in the area I live, 400,000. And you bring a new person in, automatically it's going to be shoved with another $1,300 if you go with the with the 6 mil that was brought up, which I'm glad you're not going for. I don't want to pay taxes, you know, that any more than I pay now. You know, like they said, we're still trying to get over what the gas tax and the school taxes and all that stuff. I haven't even recovered from that yet, or got used to it. But I see this thing, and it's not broken down into how much money you're putting in for repairs for the immediate time. You can build all these new roads all you want. It's going to take years. You know, you got 96 down there that's just done 2 or 3 years ago, and they're doing it again. So the knowledge is not there to make good roads. So you need to study on what you can repair and repair right. I mean, throwing in coal patch, done right, will last a lot longer, and people will be a lot more happier that they're not going in that hole. You got 4 holes over here on Summit, what's it, Parkway? 4 big ones. Every time I go by it, I feel like I need to bring my truck over and throw one patch in just to cover it and stamp it down. You need to stamp the stuff down. Wayne County doesn't do it. We could prolong the agony of someone bending their wheels by going out there, by having someone come over, call, send a picture of it, and have it done in 2 days. That can be done without any problem. And if you do it right and you stamp it, I've done some in Pinewood that I did last year. They're perfect because you got to stamp it. You can't run over it continuously at different speeds and expect it to stay in. But if you do the mill, that's fine. You know, I think 1 mill is better, but whatever you do, but remember, it's going to cost one way or another.
Sir? Okay, progressing to the back of the room, would you like to speak, sir?
I showed up a little late. I thought it started at 7. I had some other things to speak about. What, you guys are past the open part?
Yeah, so this would be public comment this evening.
He says it's not for this
Oh, it's not on this topic? Yeah, well, we could wait to the end of the evening. Okay, we'll do another round at the end. Yeah, go ahead, Jim. Yeah, go ahead.
Wanted to make the comment that line 15, and Tim commented on it, allow for the redirection of unspent funds among the assets. There's a big difference between redirecting unspent funds than looking at the whole lump sum and deciding where the priority is. It's a big difference. So which is it? I mean, if we're saying we're going to have 1.9 for local roads, are we going to take that 1.9 because the state road has a higher priority that year, or the primary has a higher priority?
No,
Or are you only going to take it if there's no place to spend the money in the local roads?
No, the idea is that, imagine if you will, you know, you're a couple years into this program, and then we find out that there's an opportunity to maybe do, that we might need, say, $2.8 or $2.9 million for one or more of the county projects. So for that particular year, the idea would be that you'd have the flexibility to, say, use a little bit more money in that year to perform a county project and then kind of make that up the following year. So to be able to balance projects between years so that you can accomplish, projects year to year, if that's clear.
So it wouldn't be intended for the whole bucket of local or primary to go to state or
No.
vice versa. It's
Oh,
tweaking it a little bit.
correct, yeah. So that you're not, if you, maybe to say it a different way, you're not absolutely saying that there's going to be .51 mils, exactly 35% of the funds in 2020 that would go directly to local roads. That the goal is to kind of use these as targets and then have a little bit of flexibility year to year.
Right, thanks.
I'm going to suspend public comment there, and now would call for a motion.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that the board adopt the following resolution, adopting a road improvement millage ballot language, and direct the clerk to forward a certified copy of the resolution to the county clerk for inclusion on the August 2018 primary ballot. Whereas the Charter Township of Canton communicated an interest in pursuing the feasibility of a road initiative and establishing an advisory roads task force on July 25th, 2017, and whereas the Michigan Transportation Fund Act, Public Act 51 of 1951, created a formula to distribute funds for road repair and maintenance that are insufficient to meet the infrastructure needs of the state, and whereas the Charter Township of Canton has determined that the condition of roads are substandard and wishes to provide road maintenance and improvements within the township, and whereas townships may provide road maintenance and improvements as authorized by Public Act 247 of 1931, and whereas townships may contract and cooperate with other entities to provide road maintenance and improvements to protect property and the health, safety, and welfare of the public as authorized by the Michigan Constitution of 1963 and other laws, and whereas the townships may impose and levy ad valorem property taxes to finance lawful public services as authorized by the Michigan Constitution of 1963 and other laws, and whereas the Board of Trustees of the Charter Township of Canton wishes to levy 1.45 mils to provide public road maintenance and improvements, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Charter Township of Canton, Wayne County, approves the following millage ballot question language and directs the clerk to submit it to be placed on the August primary election ballot. Shall the Charter Township of Canton, Wayne County, Michigan, levy a new millage of 1.45 mils for 20 years for the purpose of paying the costs of maintaining, improving, rehabilitating, and reconstructing state and county roads in the township, including pedestrian pathways improvements and stormwater drainage improvements, together with all costs of designing and acquiring right-of-way and appurtenances and attachments thereto, as well as to pay off any principal and interest on any debt issued related to the improvements as described therein. Yes or no? If approved, the estimated millage 1.45 per 1,000 of taxable value is expected to raise, I don't have that number, but I do. I'm sorry, Carolyn, do you have? 5,500,000. All right, where's the number at?
Bringing it up,
Sorry?
Here we go, here we go.
right here.
That's not the actual one. It's in the board packet, I'm sorry. I'll go up there. All right. $5,506,872. For the first year, it is estimated that 97.09% of the annual millage revenue would be distributed to the Charter Township of Canton for road improvements, and as required by law, 2.91% would be distributed to the Charter Township of Canton Downtown Development Authority. The amount distributed to the Charter Township of Canton Downtown Development Authority shall be collected solely from properties located in the Canton Township Downtown Development Authority.
Or,
Okay, in terms of board comment, I do want to make one brief comment, is if we approve this evening, that begins the next phase of a tremendous amount of work that has to be done by staff. We're going to have to hire in professionals, complete PASER studies, and there's a whole lot of detail, and a whole lot of questions that got asked and raised this evening that all have to be answered in full so the citizens can make a best decision they want to make in the future. So that's my comment. Anybody else like to?
I just want to say, after spending 8 months on the roads task force, I know that this isn't an easy decision, and I don't believe there is a decision out there that would make everybody happy. And I also know that this is not a problem that we can solve ourselves, but I believe that we have to step up to the plate and be a part of the solution. And so I hope this leads us towards that solution and to improve the quality of life for our residents.
I would just add that it's been 5.5 years work on this board by those of us that were on the last term and the people that have joined us for this term. And this did not happen in a bubble. We've been talking about this for a very long time. The Roads Task Force was a good piece of input, but we've been getting input from our administration for this 5.5 years that I've been on the board and those that have even been on longer. So I'm happy to be doing something. As I said at the start, it will never be exactly what each of 7 of us want or each of 93,000 or whatever it's up to now in our community want, but it is something that I think we as a community can be proud of.
I want to agree to that, and also to thank the task force for, and staff for working so hard on this, but nothing has, so far, the main issue I hear from residents are the roads. And so this is a way to try and get some funding for our roads, and it'll be up to the residents whether or not they agree. So I'm happy we're doing something. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just, again, I have watched as the federal government has found the ability to borrow money for any number of projects, but they have never really found the ability to actually spend that money or invest that money in infrastructure. And as I look at our country, that concerns me, that we have rotting infrastructure all around the United States, not just in Michigan. But then when I look at Michigan and I see that we spend per capita about 1/3 of what our surrounding neighbors spend on roads, that concerns me. And when I drive on our roads and I drive on their roads, I can see why they have better roads than we do. There is no easy fix. There's absolutely no easy fix to this issue. We have been let down, but President Trump and Governor Snyder and, for the most part, County Executive Warren Evans don't drive on our roads. We do. And I have watched as previous supervisors, I know Tom Yak has tried to go for a ballot proposal in the past, and the voters turned it down a long time ago. And our roads have only gotten worse. And we have sat by and we have let the perfect be the enemy of the good. It is time for us to do what we were able to do right out in front of the Township Hall right now. 9 years ago, they laid about a mile stretch of concrete right there that doesn't have a single pothole on it 9 years ago. Now, 19 years ago, just a little bit down, there is concrete there that does show wear, that does have coal patch in it. I would like to have a local roads program where we put hot patch in there and that lasts for 5 years instead of for 5 minutes like the coal patch. I would like to see a local roads program that can actually put real improvements into the ground, not just cutouts like were done on Canton Center Road to the north. Because Canton Center Road to the south, that was a complete removal, is in perfect condition. And I am heartened by the fact that the same people who delivered the first double-digit rate decrease in Canton Township's water and sewer history, or since 1974, I believe, are going to be the same people ideally administering this program. I take great pride in the people who work in municipal services, and I know that you are working hard in finance. I know you're working hard for the taxpayers, you're working hard for the residents of Canton Township, and I hope when we do sit down with Wayne County, we can convince them to get out of our way so that we can actually do the road improvements. Thank you.
Like my grandson said, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. What are we going to do? The only good thing about it is the people are going to decide. This is a proposal. It's not the answer to everything, You, the public, are going to decide whether this is worthwhile or not. That's what I feel comfortable with. It's not me making the decision or the board. The public, who's going to pay the taxes, are going to decide thumbs up or thumbs down. They may like it, they may not like it. But I think it's the responsibility of the board to put something forward to see whether or not it's going to pass.
Thank you. Yep, I agree. I think we should vote, and thanks for everybody's input before this, but I think we have looked at all angles, and we continue to do so. The budget is looked at continually, and we have a great finance staff and municipal department, as was said previously, and it is going to be our money. And so we ask the voters, we can ask the voters, do we pay now or do we pay later? Thank you.
If I could just add one quick comment. I know that, I guess I'll translate the same comment that I said when the board kind of heaped some praise on Wendy and I for delivering these great rates. There's, a deep team of people behind what goes on in our operations. And in particular, Bill Surchak has done a tremendous amount of work for the Roads Task Force in providing them information. I know he's kind of a behind-the-scenes guy. He's doing, grinding it out. And if it had not been for all the work that Bill did and under Jim's leadership, I think it would have been difficult for the Roads Task Force to complete their task in the time frame that they did. So just wanted to thank Bill publicly for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, seeing no further comment, those in favor of the motion as presented, please state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Want to continue to push forward? Greg, Tim, should we take a little 5-minute break? What do you want to do, a 5-minute break? Yeah, we'll take a 5-minute break, so let's come back at, we'll fire back up at 8 minutes, 7:15, we'll start back up. Yep.
I don't have a
If we could, I'd like to go ahead and move on with the second agenda item. Mr. Esser, Mr. Esser, would you like to speak now? Okay, let's everybody kind of settle in, and then what we're going to do here is we'll have public comment in front of the presentation, and then move into the second agenda item. So, Mr. Esser, please, now would be a good time.
All right. Hello. As many of you know, if you've attended a few times, my name is William Asper. I am the resident who brought attention to the illegal action of the Board of Trustees regarding the sidewalk repair program. The sidewalk repair program was started in 1999. The sidewalk repair program has been charging residents what are the city's responsibilities. There was a court case in Macomb County with the city of Warren that ended in 2007, which determined this. So this has already been done. The case resulted in a multi-million-dollar class action settlement against the city. In a meeting 2 to 3 months ago, the municipal director said that the easement between the sidewalk and the street were Wayne County's responsibility. I knew he was incorrect when he said this, but I did my due diligence anyways, and to confirm this, which I did, I also spoke to a Wayne County appellate court judge who agreed with my position and said the township of Canton was sunk. I let everyone know my findings at the following public board meeting. I'm just building up to it. The township attorney said that the easement is the responsibility of the homeowner. In regards to cutting the grass, that's correct. But she said that the trees and roots were as well, which is incorrect. The township attorney even went as far as to tell me 2 court cases. The first court case was about Canton being sued successfully because of damaged sidewalks along a road where someone tripped and hurt themselves. The second court case was about how many notifications is required before a homeowner is fined for a grass site. Had nothing to do with the responsibility of the easement as she thought. Neither of those cases had anything to do with this topic. Canton Township has been charging residents for sidewalks, driveways, and sewer lines that have been damaged by trees planted in the easement and their roots. Some residents have been sued for people injuring themselves on these unlevel sidewalks that were caused by the easement trees and its roots. The easement is the property of Canton Township. The tree is the property of Canton Township. Any damages this tree causes is the responsibility of Canton Township. In regards to the concrete that is lifted, damaged, or unleveled due to easement trees and their roots or any other reasons, the Township of Canton has been forcing the costly replacement of concrete, immediately paid by the residents either after the job's complete or added onto the resident's tax bill as an assessment. A much more economical solution is not to replace the concrete at all, but instead to raise it. This including substrate reinforcement for joint and crack caulking to protect the concrete bases of the concrete. These options have not been available to Canton's residents and is thus a violation of their due process rights. I don't know what's going on. It's the only way I can see it. I don't know if there's a pay-to-pay kickback that's going on, or you just don't know maybe about this lifting thing, because why are you making these residents pay for replacements when it possibly could be lifted for much, much cheaper for the residents? Next page, sorry. Since the start of the sidewalk repair program, all residents should be entitled for a refund of the money they used for this unfair and illegal program. The Board of Trustees and the Township of Canton have still not issued anything to the residents, no refunds, not even an apology. There is no statute of limitations to this. So every resident since January 1st, 1999 is due this refund. I communicated with my attorney earlier today, and a multi-million-dollar class action lawsuit is going to be filed against the Township of Canton. Police reports have also been made with Canton Police Department and Michigan State Police regarding the illegal criminal actions of Mr. Pat Williams and the Board of Trustees. I insist all residents who would like to be listed as plaintiffs on this class action filing to reach out to me with your information. Not being listed as a plaintiff will not be dependent on whether you receive the award or not. All of Canton's residents who have been taken advantage of will receive the reward. Okay, now, the Open Meetings Act. There's a law called the Open Meetings Act.
Mr. Esper?
Yes.
We're approaching 4 minutes, so
Yeah,
typically we like to
right.
limit to 3. So if you can do a wrap-up, that would be,
All right.
if it's approaching.
All right. OMA violations, a public official who intentionally violates the OMA may be found guilty of a misdemeanor, may be personally liable for actual and exemplary damages of not more than $500 per single meeting. When everyone comes up here, they state their name and they state their address. That is a violation, that is an OMA violation, which I guess, I don't know, maybe you don't know. I guess there's a lot here. I'll cut it to the last paragraph. I ask for each board member, including the supervisor, to resign. I would like to be appointed the supervisor of the board. My formal acceptance would make Pat Williams' resignation immediate. He's not doing the job he needs to do. This is a lot of money. You guys talked about the roads just now. Multi-millions. Once this lawsuit goes through, that could all go towards a settlement. And then you're not going to have money again. Pimps are the ones that tell the girls what to do, what to believe. That's all it is. Raise the taxes. Let's raise registration rates. That's all it is. I've been here. I have seen them vote on putting money that were in certain funds and allocating them to other areas. I have been here when they've spent $20,000 on 44 trees for a park while the roads are trash. It doesn't make sense to me. They're not doing their job. They're not protecting you. They're protecting themselves. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Is there any additional public comment? Is there any additional public comment? Go ahead, ma'am.
Karen Skipper, 228 Buckingham. In regards to the sidewalk, we got notified a couple months ago. They marked our sidewalks back in the fall when we didn't know what was going on. There are no marks left. So I am concerned about the fact that they say that I have 5 to 7 sections of sidewalk that need to be repaired. I don't see that. And so I don't know how to, do a double check, make sure that I'm not being taken advantage of. And I'd also would like to find out, how do I get the information of the company that's doing it if I want further them to do something else, like with my driveway?
Probably,
Maybe Bill can talk
yeah,
to.
Bill, thank you.
to her.
Could you cover for Erica this evening? If you would, ma'am, go out in the hallway with Bill, and he'll get your name and address, and we'll get somebody over to go through each of your questions. No problem. That's easy. Thank you. Yep. Okay, that concludes public comment. Greg, Tim? Shall we? Agenda item number 2, connectivity, trails, paths, sidewalk gaps.
Okay, thank you very much. Is that on? Okay. Tonight, Tim and I are put together a little bit of information for the board just on how we are coordinating between our departments to identify and prioritize gaps in pathways and sidewalks throughout the township, and just kind of give a general overview of what it is that the program will entail as we move forward. So tonight, we wanted to talk about our prioritization criteria, so how we're basically making decisions about what we're going to be doing. We're going to review the maps that we have. For the public, there are maps in the back, as well as, I think you said there were individual smaller maps if you wanted to look at those, and we'll also have the maps up on the screens for everyone to help look at those. We'll talk about the status of the 2018 pathways, as well as the gaps and 2019, and then have an opportunity for any questions. So the difference between when we're evaluating these pedestrian pathways and sidewalk gaps, the pathways are kind of your wider natural trails, the trails on the ITC corridor, as well as the Lower Rouge River and the I-275 trail, Floating Park Loop, et cetera. Sidewalk gaps, narrow concrete concrete walkways in front of homes, and then the gaps would be any areas where those are not existing currently. what we've been using to prioritize these different gaps are, is it a high priority ADA need? Do we have the right-of-way to be able to do that, or would we need to require the right-of-way? Any complaints, issues about a particular area would move those gaps up. Goat paths, as people just walk, that's kind of our colloquialism for areas where people are walking. There's a lot of use. Clearly, there's a need for a sidewalk because pedestrians are using that area, wearing out the grass. So we would look to either extend the pathway or the sidewalk in that area. And then connecting people to places, looking at how those different connections relate to township facilities as well as schools, so that neighborhoods can be connected to our different priority areas throughout the township. And then any grant funds or other considerations would be next on our list for what we'd be looking to do. What are you trying to do? So we're trying to pull the map up on the screen right now so you can look at that. We're having a mild technical. There you go. So this is the large overview of the entire township up here. The green is township-owned parks, facilities, those types of area. Red are schools. And then the dark green lines are existing pathways. And then the dotted lines are like the pending construction ones. You see there along the Lower Rouge River Trail, where we're going to be extending that trail east of 275 over to Wayne. That's already in process this year. And then any red dotted areas that you see would be kind of this area here, for example, would be a future consideration that is not planned or under construction in the next year or two, 2018, 2019. And then you can see the gray areas along there. Tim and I are trying to compete to show you that there between the laser and the little cursor. But those areas are the sidewalks. Those are the sidewalks, not the gaps, correct? So those are the sidewalks, and then the area where there's not the dark gray would be the gaps that would be for future consideration on there. So we have those maps. We can zoom in on this map. We also have maps in the back. Individual maps, and they're also broken down by kind of the four quadrants of Canton for the northeast, northwest, southeast, and southwest, so that we can zoom in on any particular areas throughout our discussion tonight if there's any individual areas that you want to look at.
So now I'm just going to take you through the projects that are either under design or will be constructed in 2018 and 19, so you can kind of see what's in the works. The 18 program includes a number of gaps that were budgeted for last year that because of timing and some other reasons with schedule that we weren't able to get those completed, but those projects were carried over during the budgetary process, and they'll be completed this year. And then we have the 18 funded projects that are in addition to that. Some of it includes design work. You can see there's about 80,000 almost in pathway design, and then some construction. The star beside the 70,000 in construction just denotes that this particular pathway, which was the one Greg mentioned, is also a multi-use path. It's not just a path for pedestrian use, whether a bicyclist, runner, walker, et cetera, but it's also provides access to the sanitary sewer along the Lower Rouge, which allows us to maintain it. So that's just kind of one differential that we have with a few of our projects. And then for this year, we have $50,000 budgeted for sidewalk gaps. The gaps that we'll be doing this year include these 5 locations. So Morton Taylor Road, north of Warren, just north of the 7-Eleven on the, that'd be the northeast corner at Warren Road and Morton Taylor, all the way north to Pepperwood. This is a well-known location. There's an extensive goat path here, and that gap will be completed this year. Sheldon Road, that's south of us, just south of Palmer Road. It's actually a little bit south of James Court, which is the first road on the west side of west side of Sheldon, heading south of Palmer Road. From there, southerly down to the Lower Rouge Trail. That's a little gap that will be completed. Cherry Hill Road, right in the heart of Cherry Hill Village, between Fort Henry and Roosevelt. That's where there is a existing pathway on either side of Cherry Hill Road, one to the south through the village and one to the north through Uptown. There's a small section of gap that needs to be completed there to finish that segment of sidewalk tying into the pathway. Cherry Hill Road at Denton, the southwest corner. If I go back, that's what this picture is. That's looking from the corners, which is on the southwest corner at that intersection, the development, looking north towards the intersection. And you get about 300-400 feet of sidewalk here that's missing, and this will allow, as Greg had identified, connecting people to places. This will help with the kids getting up to Workman Elementary.
Sorry, is that the fire station there?
And Fire Station 3 is just north of there, yep.
So I'm not on. So this is the southwest corner of Denton, but isn't development going on there?
Eventually,
Okay.
there will be
But
a development.
Okay, we're trying to get it done before development comes in to help with the students, or?
Well, it's been on the GAP program for a long time. It was a 2017 project. This is one of the ones that got carried over. It just really is coincidental that that development is kind of under at least the design process now. I don't expect that you would see construction of this, say, if it was somehow attached to the development for probably a couple of years.
Yeah, okay.
It's been permitted, it's been designed and already permitted by the county. So, our plan was to still proceed.
Okay, thanks.
The last one then is the 2018 project, and that's Denton Road, south of Proctor, generally the whole north-south leg of Independence Park along Denton Road, a gap that's existed for a very long time. And that's under design currently by one of our engineering firms. Then flipping over from the gaps to the pathways, for 2018, we've got a couple projects to be constructed. The first is the historic Ford factory pathway in Cherry Hill Village. We found out just last week that Michigan Department of Transportation will be opening bids on that on June the 1st. So as you know, that comes with some what's called TAP grants, some Transportation Alternatives Program funding. So as a result, it ends up being an MDOT project. We have an intergovernmental agreement with Wayne County, so we pay the county, and then the county pays MDOT for that work. Then another project over on the east side, Cherry Hill Pathway Rehab and Extension. That is from the existing I-275 Metro Trail, right at the bridge over I-275 westerly to Lots Road. It's an old pathway that was built in the 1975, 1976. It fell into disrepair, and the portion that exists is going to be rehabilitated, for the most part removed and redone, and then it'll be extended a little bit further east to the intersection at Lots and Cherry Hill Road. So those are both on the construct list for 2018. And then under design is the ongoing project that Greg mentioned, the Lower Rouge Trail extension from I-275 to Hannon Road. So in 2019, next year, this is what's budgeted. We have $200,000 budgeted for pathways, again with a footnote here. We are pursuing some grants jointly with Leisure Services. Frankly, they've been doing the majority of the legwork, which has been awesome. On this to date, we have recently made application to the Michigan Department of Natural Resources for a $145,000 grant from its trust fund, and we will be making application soon for another TAP grant in the amount of $40,000 to deal with some of the pedestrian crossings along this stretch of trail. So we hope that all of this amount is not going to be needed to fund the project, but that's what's in the budget at this point. As we get closer to 2019, we will probably fine-tune that budget, hoping we know exactly what the cost will be by then. And then we do have a sizable increase based on the board's approval of $250,000 for gaps this coming year in 2019. Where we've prioritized some of those gaps at this point, understanding that there's a fair bit of work that has to go into design. So in order to build something in 19, we got to be designing it in 18, because all of this requires Wayne County permits, and that sometimes can be a lengthy process. So the one highest priority gap that we'd like to complete next year would be a piece on Lots Road from Michigan Avenue North up to the Lower Rouge Trail. So that would work well in concert with the trail project, which will also be completed in 2019, and provide a connection between Michigan Ave and our multi-use trail along the Rouge. And then we have 3 other projects as gaps, depending on funding, on how that all shakes out, that we'd like to do. The first one is a newer one that we just became aware of literally in the last month or so. We're calling that the ESSA job. That's along Lilly Road between Meadowline and Gloria. That's in essence kind of north, about mid-block between Ford Road and Cherry Hill along Lilly. It's a gap that's been there for a long time. And Mr. Essa, the property owner, just contacted us within the last probably 6 or 8 weeks and indicated that, in fact, he had deeded the property, the right-of-way, over to Wayne County, so right-of-way is no longer an obstacle. This is a high-use area. There's goat paths. There's some safety concerns here. So our feeling is that this merits kind of moving it up on the list and trying to get it done, if possible, this coming year.
Which side of the street is that on?
This one is actually on the east side of the road, and it will fit in nicely also with another trail that's planned, or a pathway that's planned in the future, connecting over to Floden Park. So there was a meeting last week with Mr. Essa, and things look pretty positive to possibly getting this done, but we have to, as always, be conscious of the budget and see whether or not that one could possibly be included. Then there's a couple over on the west side, Denton Road near the dog park, a short gap there that needs to be completed to kind of tie everything together. We can't tag any developer with that one because it's literally us and ITC's property. And then Ridge Road between Ford Road and Patriot Park, kind of north of Ford. That's another location that, as Patriot Park develops, there'll be some benefit to having that gap completed. Obviously, we're always looking for developers to possibly pick up these costs, and we'll continue to do that where the opportunities afford themselves. So the last 3 there are all kind of if and when budget is available. And then on the pathway side, sorry, Anne Marie.
Anne Marie, do you have a question?
Yeah, for the 2019 for the sidewalk apps, I guess my concern is that Miss Emma was here, but she's had some death in the family, so she's been unable to contact you. But I know the challenge with the goat path is it's only in the grass. So when we have pedestrians that walk in the street, you don't see that in terms of when you're driving around and looking for that. And her concern was along the Haggerty and Michigan area, especially you've got the Walker Winter School, and you've got the kids walking from the trailer park area on Haggerty and Michigan over to Walker Winter. I mean, the only way they could do it right now is by crossing there at Haggerty, then you go way under the bridge under 275 and you come up around, and then you go over to the school. I mean, otherwise the kids, you'll see them sometimes, they'll walk in the street along Michigan Avenue because there's no sidewalk, and then they cross across 4 lanes and then another 4 lanes. So, I mean, you don't see that as goat pass, but that's an area we need to look at also, because they're walking in the street on Michigan rather than on the grass because it's, hilly. And if there's snow, there's absolutely no place to walk anyways. There and also along Haggerty. So is there a reason we aren't considering those for 2019?
Yeah, we, to complete those gaps underneath I-275 is going to be, those will be very long-term projects because they involve the federal government. That interchange is under the jurisdiction of the Federal Highway Administration. MDOT, is kind of the keeper of the interstate system within Michigan. But when we approached MDOT probably about a year ago, I think when this one first came up, MDOT indicated that really it's a project that needs to be kind of tailored together with an improvement of the interchange, much like what was done at Ford and I-275. So that's definitely going to take some time. And then the design considerations and dealing with Federal Highway Administration, those are really long lead time, really long lead time projects. I'd say, the best case scenario for anything along Michigan Avenue within the I-275 right-of-way is 2020, be absolute best case.
What about along Haggerty in Michigan there?
Yeah, those ones we can look at. Again, it comes down to, do we have design, do we have right-of-way, do we have all those criteria met that Greg flagged early on in the presentation? And for these ones like Lilly and Denton and Ridge, those boxes have all been checked.
Wouldn't it be the same though when you're going south of Michigan along Haggerty? Wouldn't that be the same?
Not necessarily. You got to look at every parcel on every, public road to determine whether or not we have the right-of-way. And there's a lot of cases, like I know we've talked in the past about we call it kind of the Greg Green Bridge, the one on Getty's Road. That one, we don't have the right-of-way. And until we get that right-of-way from the property owner, that one's probably going to continue to kind of get kicked further down the list. We haven't historically used GAP money to buy right-of-way and go through the process to buy right-of-way. But again, it's like that process is probably a year or more just to get it, if we had the money to get it. So every time we buy right-of-way, then we're taking away money from actually putting sidewalks or pathways down.
Well, maybe we could look there, because I know some of those corporations own that land, so maybe they would even kick in if we even approached them saying, hey, would you mind putting a sidewalk here?
They would have to give us the property, and that is often the challenge, whether it's a private homeowner or a business. They often don't want to give up that property without compensation.
Unless they, out of the goodness of their heart, put a sidewalk in for us or something. If
Yep.
Okay, maybe I can sit
But
down with you.
We'll look at those, and and I haven't communicated it to Bill yet, but we'll meet with Ms. Parker, sometime once she's kind of ready to meet, and then we can start kind of formulating a plan of how we address some of the gaps down in that area. But yeah, it seems like a simple thing to just go put a sidewalk in, but it becomes very complicated in some circumstances, and that one at I-275 in Michigan is probably one of our most complicated locations for a lot of reasons. And then on the pathway side for 19, what's in the hopper would be to complete the Lower Rouge Trail Extension Project. As mentioned, we're chasing some grants, but the 2019 project is going to focus on getting the bridges in and then getting the pedestrian crossings completed at Lots Road and then at both Lilly and Sheldon. So that all that work is currently under design by our consultant, which we also have a grant for to help pay for those costs, thanks to CLS. The ITC Corridor Extension Project, that's another big project, long-term. We have the property on this one. We might need a little bit from ITC. So our thought was to at least begin the negotiations and discussions with ITC about extending the main east-west trail across the community from where it ends at Sheldon Road now over to Canton Center, since the bulk of that is within Griffin Park. So that one would be probably a pretty easy one. And then I'll come back to the Floden Park, or I guess we're coming back now to this Floden Park one. The board authorized a property negotiation to acquire that little sliver along the drain, which would provide for a connector trail here. So, if all this stuff kind of comes together, maybe there's one or more projects under the pathways that could also be completed in 2019. But the design takes longer than I think, most of us, conventionally think. There's a lot of issues when you think of this particular location, you've got some floodplain issues, some DEQ permitting issues, but it's definitely doable. So this is Canton's most famous bridge, pedestrian bridge, the bridge along Morton Taylor Road over top of the Lower Rouge River. Kind of one of our favorite bridges, and one of the keys to connecting, south of the river with north of the river and all the pedestrian trails that we have down there. So with that, Greg and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
The ITC discussions, they typically aren't looking for cash from us. It's just easements, right, given?
Yeah, it was a big easement that was requested when we did the north-south section, mostly because the easement was required for the sewer, which we also installed. This time, we're really just looking for an easement for the pathway, so I would expect it would be a lot easier. Also, when we did that original negotiation, which I think took 7 years, 7 years, we were the first community in southeast Michigan that was negotiating such an agreement with ITC. Novi was the second. Now there's a bunch of others that have done those, so I think they've got a model. They're more comfortable. I think it'll move much more quickly this time. But
The ITC folks were in Lansing this morning. I did talk to them, and they were jumping through whatever we need, let us know. They're here to help us, blah, blah, blah. So, and they did discuss other communities projects that they've got going right now. So absolutely, the timing.
Yeah, ITC did a session at the Michigan Parks and Recreation session as well and expressed interest in granting easements for this type of use. So I think it'll be much easier than the 7-year process. Now we can get it down to 5 or 4.
we'll at least get started.
So how does it, so the ITC corridor runs behind my house, and we have a path there. How does that work if it's our path, or does ITC maintain that part of the path? It go from between
Pull
Palmer
up the
and
map
Lily?
real quick just to talk about. Do we? Okay, so the path itself, or is it like a goat path type?
No, ITC cuts the grass down, but in terms of maintaining the path, do they maintain the path also, or do we do that?
No, we maintain the path. Yes. Yeah, so it's our responsibility to do all the maintenance for the path itself.
So this green line right in the middle is the pathway. You can see here, this is where it crosses Palmer Road, and then it goes north, goes south of there, down to the Lower Rouge Trail, and it meets up with the Lower Rouge Trail here along the river. And then you can go east-west on that trail, but the ITC pathway then continues north to Cherry Hill. You've got another Hawk signal here at Cherry Hill Road, and then it winds westerly around the big Cherry Hill station. This is the big electric power station or distribution station that is on this location. And then it turns and goes westerly over to Sheldon Road. So the piece that we were talking about, that's mostly in Griffin Park, is the stretch here, which is shown in the dashed red line here from Sheldon over to Canton Center Road.
What's it cost to maintain the paths in Kent?
It's nominal. The staff go out, so our staff maintain the gravel surface, the public works staff do, and then Greg's staff maintain the grass, the mowing, and any kind of required chemical and weed treatment. Our staff go out once a month after an inspection and will grade it, so it's probably 2 to 3 hours worth of time for them to perform that. It's pretty quick.
Yeah, our biggest expense would, obviously, the mowing, but that's internal with our staff. But the larger expense would be any tree issues that come up, if any downed trees or hanging branches, those sorts of things. If we have to hire an outside company to come in to handle any larger issues like that. If it's smaller branches, we can handle those. But if it's a large tree that needs to come down or branches that are elevated, we'd have to bring in a company to take care of those for us. Those are more along the Lower Rouge Trail, those types of issues along the ITC corridor. Obviously, we don't have any tree issues.
The logic between splitting it between the two different departments is, part of the trail benefits, if you will, the general fund operation of the township, which is Greg's area, and then the other part is the trail is there to provide access for us to maintain the sanitary sewer. So some funds in the form of maintenance activities are done through water and sewer.
Had there ever been discussion about running the ITC trail past Griffin Park to the dog park or?
Yeah,
Cherry Hill
we'll
Village?
pull up the master plan here so you can see the full scope of it, but the long-term goal is to
Build the
have
Seagrass
a
Bridge
complete
over Canton
east-west
Center.
connection along with a north-south connection. So that would actually run west all the way along the corridor into Cherry Hill Village and then connect to where it would then head south down to Getty's Road through Independence Park and Cherry Hill Village. And then that connects over to the Lower Rouge Trail to the I-275. So the I-275 trail gives us the northwest connection, and then the I-275, or the ITC trail will ideally eventually get us over into the dog park and then connect to the southern section to go all the way down to Getty's Road.
So on the map, this is where that phase that we would try to design this year, next year, would end at Canton Center Road, kind of at the very west end of Griffin Park.
Right.
Along the ITC corridor, and then eventually extend west behind the two schools, cross Beck Road, continue to extend west, like Greg was saying, all the way over here into Cherry Hill Village, and then here's the existing dog park and Preservation Park at the far west end. And then it would tie into this north-south trail that goes through Cherry Hill Village.
And each trustee has to take a shift as a crossing guard at Canton Center Road with a big stop sign. So we'll be signing up.
Get your requests in early.
Do we have like a brand name or do we have any type of like marketing branding for our trail system that we?
Right now, it's primarily the Lower Rouge Trail is what we market it as. But once we get a further extension on that ITC section, we'll probably need to come up with something larger scope than that, or in addition to that, probably. Right now, we just call it the ITC Trail,
Sure.
ITC Connector Trail.
What, you're putting together a marketing program to bring more people to get engaged in the community? What
Yes,
was the tagline there that was being developed?
You belong here? Yes,
Tied into the trails?
absolutely.
I'm sorry, were you, it's okay. Where's that connector north, in Cherry Hill Village? Yeah, that little piece you said that's missing that we're doing?
Yeah, do you mean this little stretch here right on Cherry Hill Road?
Yeah, I mean, I ride that's through the telephone poles there, this north-south, but there's a piece you said we're doing this year.
Yeah, this is the gap right here.
Oh,
That's
it's
included
sidewalk?
in, right, Bill? That's the one that Erica's working on, it's 2017. Mhm. So just repeat what Bill said, but, so he's talking about this north-south crossing, which Erica's been working on for some time with the county in terms of design and standards. But then this little sidewalk gap is the one gap that's included from the 2017 program. That's not completed still. Sorry, the one a little bit further, let me change my mouse. The one that's a little bit further west of here, that goes from Denton Road over, this one was completed already, so. And then this is the one that was in the photograph that we talked about, that runs north-south.
And that section of trail, long-term, Ideally, we'll head down towards Gettys Road and then west along Gettys Road and ideally connect with the Washtenaw County path. They have a section of path heading east-west along Gettys Road, does not quite come to the Canton border, but that would be something that we would have discussions with the Wayne County folks to show them our plans and try and coordinate plans with them that their trail would continue east to connect to our trail so that you would have that larger connectivity to other communities as well.
My head's in about 6 different places right now, but the big preserve over off Coppernick, that doesn't tie today to 275
Yeah.
Trailway, does it, or it does not? It does
Yes.
not today. It does?
Yes.
Wayne
The
County
Wayne
was-
County Park?
Holiday Park, yeah.
Yeah.
East side of 275?
Property runs behind.
There's a
businesses.
trail, the developer is putting the trail east of 275. That section.
Yeah, the only,
So
the
Livonia
provision is
Brothers-
it doesn't go east of the entrance to Holiday Park.
Right.
Down towards the park like we saw when we drove out there. So there's a pretty sizable gap down there.
The 275 trail will connect over through that development into Holiday Park, but it will not, there's that small sidewalk gap along Coppernick, I believe it is,
From
along
Holiday Park
Coppernick
out
to get
the
to
east.
the park itself.
And I had asked Brad, I know, you guys know I'm like a dog with a bone. I've asked Brad to go back in again to see if he can find another patch of dirt.
Right.
And I haven't heard any feedback, so, that's over near the Holiday Park.
You can
So
see
I
that
haven't given up on that yet.
dashed line there, getting over into Holiday Park will be constructed.
I have a few questions. The 50,000 this year versus the 250 last year, that's the change in the budget that we made in our goals and planning process?
Right, 50,000 in 18 and 250 in 19.
Okay.
Right.
And then we'll start the 20 budget process and start talking about what we do with that number. How much is a bridge, like the Greg Green Bridge? I mean, I know it depends on length, but typically.
Yeah, it varies, but, bridge pricing that we've seen, they can be 100,000, they can be 200,000 for a really enormous bridge. But, maybe for planning purposes, we're doing, is it 2 bridges along the Lower Rouge?
Yes.
295,000.
About 300,000.
But those are really big bridges. Those are bridges that can carry heavy equipment so that we can maintain the sewer, not just a straight-up pedestrian
Similar to
bridge.
what we have at the trailhead.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same style as what you see on the Lower Rouge Trail currently would be matched.
Because, for instance,
section.
there's a goat path that I've contributed to along Warren Road and Canton Center by the 7-Eleven there. So all of Sunflower on the south side of Warren has sidewalk except that last little piece. But I know that there's a little river or a little drain that runs through there. Where are we?
Right here.
Yeah, where's Canton Center?
Canton Center's right here,
Yeah,
Sheldon Road, and this is the wetlands.
yeah, no, I was talking Canton Center. And so you just have the little corner there and the 7-Eleven is there and
Yeah.
the bank across the street. So it's not on this map. but
That's
if
the
you kept
next, it's the other
going-
map.
Yeah, if you kept going west, there's a lot of sidewalk, but it ends there. On the north side, there's also a gap, and there's a big goat trail there. So, just in general, I just wanted understanding, because I knew there is a little behind, to the west there's a little creek there, I noticed, so. In general, I guess that's it. Thanks. Oh, the last thing was, what if we did want to start putting some money aside for purchasing rights if it was a project that we thought would have big benefit? How would we go about doing that? Just assign it in the budget, or?
Right. Yeah, it's really just a matter of dollars, and again, we've been focusing on ones where, we can actually get the project constructed.
Okay. Thanks.
How do we begin the process of acquiring right-of-way with some of these private property owners? It's got to be a challenging task sometimes when you want to close a gap, huh?
Yep. Sometimes staff have just actually approached the property owner directly and asked them about it, and sometimes property owners have come in and talked to us. That's more the exception than the norm. But yeah, it's a matter of, beginning a dialogue, and if there's not federal dollars involved, if it's not a federal transportation project, then it makes it a whole lot easier. But that's what's required.
Everybody get the questions asked, answered on it? Okay. See,
Mark, I
yeah,
know-
yeah, go ahead, Anne
I know
Marie.
it's not part of this funding, but people keep asking, since I live by the Lily Road Bridge. What's the timing of that, speaking of
The
bridges?
official announcement to the world is spring of 2019, but Inside Baseball says they're going to really try to push to catch the end of 18. But officially, it's spring 2019.
Maybe we'll have an extended summer since we had an extended winter.
Sounds like a guarantee from the supervisor. It'll be done by fall.
Yeah, thanks. Perfect. Okay, seeing no further board comment, is there any additional staff comment? Thank you for coming.
Fishing derby this weekend.
That, thank you very much, appreciate it. Call for a motion to close.
So moved.
Favor the motion is presented, state aye. Aye. Motion carries. Good evening, thank you.